Now it's time to welcome our first guest, Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner. Samuel and Kirstie came to us several years ago through one of our income specialists and advisors, Michael Eastham of Fellowship Financial Group in Altamont Springs, Florida. Michael's actually been on the Income Generation many times. In this case, we booked Michael and the O'Banners on Jerry Willis' show on Fox Business News. At that time, they were getting married, but actually had a plan to get out of debt. Today, not only are they debt-free, but they're actually the founders of Fresh Start Financial Education. Samuel and Kirstie, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, David. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
In fact, you probably noticed on the introduction to the show, we actually have Michael right on the introduction. He's part of the roll-in that comes every single week.
Yep.
Yes,
I know you know that because you're regular viewers of the show and all. But, so I'm going to put you on the spot
All right.
Okay.
a little bit here. And we're going to play a little newlywed game with you.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to be Bob Eubanks. Okay. Now
Okay.
I know you two are very young, obviously. So I have to ask the question.
Okay.
Even know who Bob Eubanks is?
You do.
You do? Oh, good. All right. I love it. That's perfect. That's what I was hoping I'd get for an answer. So, tell me, how long have you been married?
Next month will be 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Okay. So when you came into the relationship with debt, who had the debt?
It's me.
That was you?
Yep.
That was you?
was me.
Was the shoe collection, let me see there, is it shoes? Is that what it is?
No, it was a car,
Combination, yeah.
student loans, all kinds of other stuff.
All kinds of other stuff, okay. So now how far into the relationship, Sam, did you figure out that this debt existed?
Within the first month of us dating, actually, because I was teaching a financial class helping people in our community eliminate debt. And I
Nice.
would meet with Kirstie on our date nights, and it just opened for a good conversation. How did your Tuesday night go? Well, this is what we discussed in class, and just kind of gradually made our way into that conversation because,
So you were subtle about bringing into a new relationship, which is good.
yeah.
And how did you accept that?
I thought it was awesome. It was funny because I had actually gone through a similar course to the one that he was teaching prior to meeting him. Didn't quite grasp it, but I was already familiar with the concept. So I thought it was interesting to meet him, and he was so enthusiastic about it. I thought, like, okay, this would be helpful in really getting on track this time.
So did you feel, and I just have to ask this, but did you feel at all embarrassed about having the debt early on in this relationship by any chance?
I did initially, but he was so gracious about it. He never made me feel inadequate or, he never made me feel bad about it. He embraced it. And he, shared his own story where he had struggled with the same thing before getting a hold of the principal. So he was really gracious about it. So he made it easy.
He made it easy and very approachable. And that's important because I find that a lot of the reasons why people struggle with debt is simply because they're afraid to admit it. They bury their head in the sand. They're embarrassed by it. And you really shouldn't be. The first step is admitting there's a problem, right? That's always the
Right.
first step.
Right.
So, okay, so now you had open conversations about this in terms of how those conversations were how this debt was going to get fixed and eliminated over time. So you put a plan together.
We did.
And that plan consisted of you paying off the debt over how long of a period?
15 months. Our first 15 months of marriage, we paid off $50,531.83, give or take.
$50,000.
$50,000.
But who's
50.
counting?
Paid off $50,000 in 15 months.
Yes, sir.
Wow, look at that. That is really good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So you paid that off.
Yes, sir.
And then what has that enabled you to do since then with the money? Now that you have that yoke off your back, what have you done?
Several things. Help others.
Absolutely.
It's freed us up to be generous in a greater capacity. We recently closed on our first home, and it's just created an avenue for us to, what else?
All kinds of things.
all types of
Travel.
travel.
Like you said, be generous.
It's just not that bondage
Yep.
of
That's
having
great.
that debt.
You
in our
guys are a
lives.
great story. We have to take commercial break right now. We'll be right back. So I just stay put, don't move.
Sure.
And you stay with us also. We'll be right back with more on the income generation right after the commercial break. Well, it's time again to welcome back Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner. So you're talking about some of the things that you're able to do,
Yes, sir.
which I love. So part of it is you said, I want to do good things for people.
Absolutely.
And you've been able to do some. So just
Right.
give me an example of maybe one nice thing that you were able to do now that you were able to free up some of that cash flow.
Sure. I'll give an example. There's been many, but Go ahead. You had something in mind?
Most recently, we had a family member that we had found out had taken out a loan that was really putting a burden on her, and we were able to take care of that, pay it off for her, you know, and that was really special to be able to do things like that, you know.
That's awesome.
Matters.
And that's got to make you feel good, right? I mean,
It makes you feel good to be able to be in a position to help, for sure.
and sometimes it's not just about the dollars and cents. I mean, we
Yeah.
always talk about that on the show because it's a show about money, of course, but it's about feeling good. It's about being happy, and if you can help family, I mean, you know, what else are you going to do with your money if you can't help family, right? Bottom line.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, you bought your house.
Yes, sir.
So I assume you're able to put more money down on the house because of this. So,
Yep.
so let me ask you again. This is the newlywed game, so I can
sure,
ask all these types of questions and get away with it, right? So, did you put down 5%, 10%, 20%? Where were you able to go?
Great question. So we did it what we call the Fresh Start way. So our business is Fresh Start Financial Education. And to answer your question, we suggest families to put down 20% or more towards their home.
That's great. I love it. You know, I always say that really, truly, that's how it used to be, where people would put down 20%, and we got so far away from that. Now it's part of what caused the financial crisis.
Right.
Absolutely.
And by the way, just so you know, Sam, you didn't have to do the shameless pitch for Fresh Start. I was going to ask you about that later. All right, so you did that. You did some travel. Where's
Yes.
the coolest place you've been traveling to since you paid off the debt?
Well, when I met Kirstie, I had never been on a cruise before.
Okay.
So to me, we went on a cruise, even a 7-day cruise, and it's just to be away from the cell phones and just kind of disconnect. And then we went to four different
countries.
styles,
Yep.
four different,
That's awesome.
That was a lot of fun for me. Yeah.
That's great. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So how did you make this plan over 15 months? I mean, give us, without getting too far in the weeds, just give us a feel for what you did, boots on the ground, to get focused on this. Stuff that some of our viewers might be able to listen and actually take away and implement when they go home.
Great question. I think the primary thing that we did was we budgeted prior to the pay period, prior to the direct deposit. Kirstie and I would sit down and we budget together. And so we just assigned every dollar to different budget categories. And having that control over your money together, unified, not just me doing it and trying to do it on my own. When you're married, there's great unity. You can make greater traction when you're on the same page. So I think for me that was primary.
And then also minimizing our expenses. So
Yes.
looking at every area where we were spending and figuring out how we could cut back and spend
Absolutely.
less to use that difference to go towards the debt.
Yeah,
Yeah, it helps when you're a couple and you're in it together.
absolutely.
You know, if one person's, it's like anything else. It's like if two people smoke and one wants to stop smoking, it's harder when the other one doesn't.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes,
So you
sir.
focused on together. You got the debts under control.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to pay it off in a level fashion? Was it really $3,000 a month for 15 months or something like that, or?
It was thousands of dollars per month. I mean, we literally lived off of half of one income. I mean, it was a sacrifice, David.
That's
I mean,
great.
but we had the end in mind. You know, it was a great sacrifice. We had to tell friends no a lot of times when we were asked to go to restaurants or various places.
So for 15 months,
Yes, sir.
hardly a dinner out.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, forget about shopping at Whole Foods and having that. Right, you go right to Publix and you get, you know, it's what you have to do. You
Right.
cut every single corner.
Right.
But now that 15-month sacrifice means that for the rest of your life,
Yes, sir.
you'll be able to enjoy much more financial freedom.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So tell us about Fresh Start. When did the idea about Fresh Start come up? I know what motivated you to start it, but when the idea come up and how'd you implement it, and talk to us about that.
Well, it was almost, we shared publicly online on Facebook our debt-free story. The morning of, when we paid off the student loan, which was the last and final debt, we took a quick picture. And when I took the picture and we took the picture, it went viral, literally. And we got hundreds and hundreds of messages from friends. Thousands, I would say. Yeah, you're right. Of people we didn't know that wanted to know, how did you do it? How can we do it? And so we realized there was a greater need, and Fresh Start was
Did you ever realized? Yeah.
Yes. And
Wow.
the company we birthed, Fresh Start Financial Education, from that need. And we've been on and helping people ever since.
That's great. Right after the break, we're going to have you back. We're going to ask you more about Fresh Start.
Sure.
And I want to ask you specifically about some of the techniques that you recommend when it comes to paying off debt and getting people in a better financial situation. So we have one more segment together. Looking forward to it. And you stay with us too. We'll be right back after the commercial break with many more words of wisdom from my new friends Samuel and Kirstie. We'll be right back. So now it's time to welcome back one final block, Samuel and Kirstie O'Banner. So let's talk about that then. What types of strategies do you find work the best for people?
Unity, first and foremost, being together, minimizing expenses. Kirstie's excellent at that. I mean, she changed where we shop for groceries, shaved our grocery bill down by in half, basically.
So definitely minimizing expenses,
for sure.
Budgeting together.
Budgeting together.
We ordered our debts from smallest to largest and just attacked each one, in order, and just used the momentum from, paying off one to go towards the next, and just kept it going until we got to the last one.
Now, I bet some of those things that you did at that time created habits after 15 months.
Oh, absolutely.
That even though now you can afford to spend more money being debt-free,
absolutely.
I bet some of those habits still stick, and they're making you even more financially sound since you paid off the debt, correct?
Right.
Yeah, that's what we tell people. This is not just until you eliminate debt. This is a lifestyle.
Right.
So this is not just for a short period of time. This is for the rest of your lives. We still have those budget meetings. We have those periods every 2 weeks. And so this is a lifestyle, and we still minimize expenses. We call various companies to try to say, hey, our bill's too high. What do you help us out?
Great, I love it. So it's funny, as you know, my book is entitled Return on Principle.
Yes,
so I'm a big fan of focusing on principles when it comes to your investing and not deviating from your own principles. And what happened is this sounds like it got you back to some of your basic principles, maybe principles that your parents taught you, but then you got a little bit away from it maybe as you got older, and now you're back to it. So what are the most important principles for people to adhere to get the right mindset so that when they pay off the debt, they don't go back to it? Just like when you're on a diet. Some people go on a diet and they gain the weight back.
Right.
But it's got to be a change of lifestyle. So tell me about what the 2 or 3 most important principles are to get people debt-free and to keep them debt-free that they should be able to adopt, hopefully.
Great question, David. Our faith has been a huge part of this whole process. There's a scripture in Proverbs 22, verse 7, says that the borrower is slave to the lender. And so that right there, number one, is we didn't want to be slaves to anybody. We wanted to be free financially and in every way. So that, to me, is number one.
Right.
Driving factor, motivating factor.
Right. And just deciding that going into debt and borrowing is not the only way to make purchases, especially large purchases. I know, we both had car payments and things like that back in our borrowing and, debt days.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't know that we didn't really think about the fact that you could purchase, a car without financing it and making payments and those things. So just making a decision to not borrow and to eliminate debt if you have acquired it as quickly as possible.
On a previous show a while ago, I talked about a client of mine from the Middle East that I had acquired maybe almost 30 years ago. He's a great gentleman. His name's Iraj. And Iraj said he didn't have any debt. And then all of a sudden, he's talking in a later portion of our interview about car payments. And I said, well, wait a minute. He said, you have any debt? He goes, well, you see, and part of it's because the culture doesn't believe in debt. So he says, he goes, well, what I do is I figured out a long time ago that if I'm going to have a car payment my entire life, I'd rather save the money in advance for the next car than pay it off in arrears. And he figured out back then, with higher interest rates, that he could actually get a car that's about 1/3 more expensive for the same dollars by saving in advance than paying it off in arrears and paying the interest. So he's earning interest instead of paying it.
Right.
And again, that made it a great lifestyle habit. So in 15 seconds or less, final words of wisdom for our income generation viewers about debt.
I would say definitely have an end goal in mind. And you don't have to be in bondage to debt any longer. And Kirstie and I are definitely here to help. You can visit us at www.freshstartfinancialeducation.com.
You just made my sales pitch easier. I didn't even have to give that information. I love it. That's great.
I didn't.
Thank you so much for being with us. It's
Thank
been
you.
absolutely wonderful. I hope people learned a lot from you. You had a lot of great things to say. And you stay with us too. We have a lot more here on The Income Generation. We'll be right back after the break.